Welcome to the Innovation Room, the space we explore the application of technology and AI in business, the practical and sometimes philosophical ideas shaping our future. In a random social gathering, if you ask around how people feel about AI, you notice a mixture of excitement and anxiety. From the sense of enablement AI has given some, to their worries about the future of their jobs and sometimes the future of humanity. Take it to the business context, AI adoption represents a shift not only in operational capabilities, but also in the strategic direction of industries. For executive leaders and board members, the integration of AI extends beyond technological adoption. It's about steering their organization through uncharted waters. This shift generates multifaceted excitement as well as anxieties, encompassing concerns over investment returns, the future trajectory of their businesses, and the responsibility to lead their people and their customers effectively in their space between the known and the unknown. In these complexities, it's crucial for leaders not only to manage the anxiety of their teams concerning their job securities and workplace changes, but also they need to navigate their own path through the uncertainties about the broader impact of AI on their strategic vision and their business models. So today I asked a psychotherapist, psychologist and the founder of therapy in London, Philip Karahassan, to join me to explore this. I want him to help us understand anxiety and to uncover strategies that help mitigate the anxiety that accompanies AI integration to our businesses and our lives. I am Somayeh, co-founder of Geeks. Please join me and Philip in the Innovation Room as we chat about human anxiety triggered by AI. Hi Philip, thank you for joining me in the Innovation Room. Shall we start with a quick introduction about you and then we get into the topic of why you're here and why I thought it's really important to have a chat.
Fantastic. Yeah, so my name is Philip. I'm a therapist working in London, helping people with their mental health needs. I've also got another business which I'm starting, a platform helping clients to connect to their chosen therapist because I'm finding that clients are finding it hard to connect to people and get their needs met because they need to find that human connection. And then finding with all these other platforms, it's just lists of therapists and people are getting choice anxiety. So I'm going to try to help to do that.
Yeah, we talk about that. We'll talk about choice anxiety.
Really?
Cool. Before we get into the topic, in the Innovation Room, we have a tradition that we ask the guests to share with us if they wanted to do some serious innovation work, who would they want to bring to the Innovation Room with themselves to collaborate? And that could be somebody dead or alive, human, non-human, fiction, real. You've got all sorts of choices to make.
Yes.
Hope that doesn't make you anxious.
Just a little bit. No, I mean it's an easy one for me because as being a psychoanalyst by that's my training, my core training. I've got to pick Sigmund Freud, don't I? Because without him, I'm not sure I would be here doing this job. And he was really the pioneer when it came to making mental health more widestream and more accessible to people, because it was more of a medical term before. Obviously, you had people operating to get rid of any anxiety through the water in the womb, and he actually coined the term psychoanalysis and help people just to get the help that they need. So yeah, Sigmund Freud, I'd have him next to me. Maybe he'd do some analytic work on me. I'd lay on the couch rather than
I think I would be very interested to see what he's got to say about AI and humans and all the anxieties or excitements and how he would analyze that.
Yeah, big time, because psychoanalysts or psychoanalysis is based on a world of 100 years ago, if not more. And you think about the developments in terms of technology or just society in general. And I don't know, I think that Sigmund Freud would want things to go back to the way it was, but he's in control. And now, we have a lot more control just to be ourselves and meeting him 3 times a week, I'm not sure it's really achievable to the piece right now. So
yeah,
I think you have a lot to say.
yeah, wonderful. So I reached out and asked you to come to the podcast to talk about human anxiety potentially triggered by AI. And the reason was during the past, say, 12 to 18 months that AI has become to public space or available to the public space, and everybody started to playing with it. All of a sudden, it has become everybody's business. Basically, everybody has got some sort of exposure, and as a result, form some sort of opinion for or against or both. And what I have noticed is that I see a level of anxiety rising in the society that I have been exposed to. So I'm obviously massively generalizing to the whole planet, but I have started sensing a kind of shared anxiety to all, regardless of people's role, seniority, age, gender, all sorts of diversity that you can think of. There is a level of anxiety, higher or lower, but there is a level of anxiety. And that made me think, oh, as if we didn't have an anxiety problem in this society already. We've just passed pandemic and all sorts of impacts of that. Now we've got something else adding to that anxiety. And what let me explore it with somebody who understands it better, and see what do we see, what do they see, and how we can explore that better, and what we can learn from it, and bring it more into the context of business, because that's who our audience are. So what do we see? How do we notice those kind of anxieties if they exist in our businesses, and what do we do about it? Is that okay?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think just before we go into business, something we need to address is really the root of anxiety, what it's all about. Because anxiety is the buildup of a hormone called dopamine.
You're answering my first question. What is anxiety?
Yeah, so let's get on with that, because then at least we have a picture about what it is. And we're going to bridge in AI here, because there's a whole unknown about actually the impact of AI. We're jumping ahead. So let's talk about anxiety. Dopamine is the driver hormone. If we're hungry, we want to go to the fridge and eat some food. So dopamine is elicited to say, I'm hungry, I need to go and get some food. And if you don't act on it, more and more dopamine is released, until instead of it being a sense of drive, it's a sense of angst. You find it very much, say, for example, before you run a race, you shake and people go, oh my God, I need to run, or an exam. And if we can't action and use that dopamine, then again, it turns into anxiety. So let's bridge in AI now, where there's so many unknowns of, ChatGPT is being used and celebrated as a way to really hone in our skills. But we don't know what it is outside of that, or how AI is going to be introduced into our world or into our jobs, then I might be redundant. So we have
is there then the source of anxiety? Is it the unknown, or is there any other thing? So, for example, if I know what's going to happen, but for whatever reason I can't achieve that, does that make me anxious, or it doesn't?
Yeah, it would do. But through my work with people, we go, some things we don't sure how we can control it. We have to create our world, our own way to use whatever happens in life. The quote by I can't remember the name, but adapt or perish comes to mind. The world will change. And no matter if it's horses stopping being used for horse-drawn carts in replacing cars, they adapted. They did race horses and stuff like that. The market just changes. So we need to find out what our role is going to be with the changes. I mean, it's here to stay, right? It sounds colossal, the sort of work going into it. So it's the unknown right now is the main cause of that anxiety that I can see.
And obviously this is not the first time that as humans we are facing the unknown. We had pandemic, that was a big unknown. We have things like war or conflict. They create unknown and they create anxiety. Is there anything different with AI or technology anxiety than other source of anxiety?
I think so, because AI is something, wars have been done before. There's always going to be wars that continue to be. The rules of wars have changed from World War One with bunker wars to the next ones, or the trenches, wars of trenches, into the way that we see wars now. But in terms of AI, this is a whole new game changer where we're going, well, what makes us human is being replicated, and actually going to, AI can do it better than we can do it, quicker, faster. And then you go, well, what relevance are we going to have? So I think it is different, because
that was my assumption, that's the core of the anxiety reason. It's for the first time in our history of existence, we are facing with something that's threatened our identity, what makes us human. And that made me to go, when I work with the clients or I speak at events, it made me go back to what makes us human. Like, let's dig in to see what is it that makes us human, and why are we so threatened by? Is it our intelligence? Is it like wanting to be the most intelligent creature existed, and then all of a sudden there is another form of intelligence that is going to be, if it's not already, it's going to be more intelligent than us, and that threatens our being? And like, are we having an identity crisis, you think?
Yeah, well, I find it very much so with SEO in terms of Google, right? So people go, oh, Google, I'm going to copy content from another website, and I have to tell people, you can't be Google. Google is more intelligent, and people find that really hard to understand, that they can't just play Google. They think that they're more intelligent than Google, but they're not. But thinking back to AI now, how are we able to relinquish that sense of I'm in control and allow it to be in control? But this is where the fear comes in, because if we can't beat it, how are we ever going to compete? How are we ever lay our place in the world and go, I'm the best at doing this job? Because is it Deep Blue with the chess grandmasters? Just beat them. Experience.
Yeah, I've heard even CEOs I was talking to, and that was the most surprising comment I heard. That I was having a chat with the CEO of a decent big organization about AI strategy in their business, and how we can help them to create the AI strategy. And like, he was a bit like, not like, I felt like he's not with us. And then I asked the question of like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? Are you listening, basically? And then he said, do you think there is going to be, are we going to be replaced? Like, is it going to be like CEOs replaced by AI? I don't think so. And I was like, Jesus, who said anybody is going to replace you? Like, why did you take it so personally? And you're in a position that you have to help your whole organization to understand, what's going to happen to them, what's the future of the organization with AI. And then if our leaders are having those kind of moments of identity crisis and like, who am I? Like, what am I going to be useful for? Then I think we are going to have a deeper, bigger problem than we might think we have.
Well, maybe. I mean, machines will make, or AI will make better decisions, but what is it that they're going to be working towards? What is their ultimate goal? Because you think, is AI's job to make our life better or worse, or to maximize profits, or how is that game going to be played? And this is the thing about social media or the internet, as an example. What is the game that Google looks for in terms of search engine optimization? So you have to play that game. And we are still the masters of that AI. So we're going to use it for what we need it for. We're going to always need, well, right now at least, a master to direct it, to help us. And this is the thing with AI and the anxiety, is that we're not seeing it as something helpful. We're seeing it as something which is going to dwarf us. We're watching sort of, The Matrix or Terminator, going, oh, well, this is what machines are going to do. And
I think that is true. That is a big part, like social media and Hollywood and all the stories that we have been fed, it impacts our perception of what our future with AI is going to look like. But also, I think it's sometimes I see it even closer to our human relationships than those kind of futuristic stuff. Like I see the same sort of behavior, that if all of a sudden there is a new colleague hired to the team or come from another department to your department, and they show more capability and they show a bit of more intelligence, and you all of a sudden you see the team is nervous that, well, is he or she going to make us look bad? Like, is it going to, is it going to take over our jobs? Is it going to take over our opportunity? So I see the same sort of like rivalry, if you like, and that there is an anxiousness there about that.
Again, remember, we're going back to dopamine. It's saying, oh, I'm not good enough. And rather than sit there and stew on it, going, I'm not good enough, what's my place going to be? Let's start leveling up. Let's start doing something which allows us to feel invested, incorporated, but also use that competitive urge to go, okay, they might be doing it better than me. What can I do instead? This is where
together the whole team could be, because I think that's the healthy kind of competition, that when somebody new is added with new capabilities or better capabilities, it's always like, well, together the whole team is gonna be stronger. And I'm not seeing enough of that kind of behavior to be considered by individuals.
It's so cutthroat. I see a lot of people in the city, and it's very much like I have to beat them with there's profits or just work so that I can go here. And we're built for competition. We're built to be seen.
Yeah, and you completely see the human nature coming out of that. Like they start trash talking AI. Yeah. They start saying, "Oh, it hallucinates. It does this. It does that. It's not that good. It's not that smart." I'm like, but who said AI is perfect at the moment? But it's just getting better and better. So like the point is not so much like the way I find most people talking about AI as if it's a rivalry and it's something that they have to put the AI down so they can be still keeping their place and they can still be that better, more capable species than AI. I find it very interesting, and I'm interested in your views on, like, if you see that, what would be your reaction, your advice?
I'll give you a personal story. I saw a client for one session. They said, after that, I don't want to come back, Philip. I said, oh, okay, that's fine. I asked people if they don't want to come back after that first session, because to go into personal or how therapy works, the number one most important part is the connection with your client. If the client doesn't connect with you or doesn't trust you, there's no point in them coming back. So go and find someone that you enjoy speaking to, that you trust, that you want to do the work with. And I'll opposite, if you don't like it, I always say, if you don't like me, don't come back. So he said, rather not see you for it. I said, okay, fine. What's your next steps? And he said, well, I think ChatGPT gives me a better service because
you got a rivalry.
I do. Well, if that's where they're up to, that's fantastic. And if that's what you mean, what's the stat I heard? 4 out of 10 people see a bot. They relate to the bot in the same way they would do with a human. So you go, well, okay, if they're giving them what they need, that's fantastic. But there's something about that empathy, that being seen, that connection with a human being, which you're not going to get the same answers, the same connection with a bot.
I don't know because I have 3 dogs.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously I'm biased, you would say you have 3 dogs. But I think sometimes or most of the times, the connection I make with the dogs, the level of trust that exists with a human and a dog, I don't think a lot of humans get to that level with each other that easily, like that. Like with animals, you trust them. Like if you're not afraid of them, that you just trust them because you know what you're going to get. They're obvious. Their body language is obvious, and they're not trying to deceive you. So it's kind of like, I don't know. We haven't got enough, I think, data to see how our relationship with robots are going to be like. What is the trust even mean in our relationship with robots? I showed Pi, which I don't know if you've used it. It's AI model that is based on emphasis of that training of that is based on emotional intelligence. So when you communicate with it, and it's conversational, so when you talk to it, you feel like it has a lot of emotions and emotionally intelligent, bot, if you like. So it's sometimes it's hard to believe it's not a human because of the way it talks and the techniques it uses. And we just wanted to test it because I introduced it to my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law, and they did what most humans do. It's like they became, oh wow, first, and then, oh, what does that mean? Oh, how do we interact with it? So it became emotionally charged really quickly because you start asking all sorts of questions. And then we gave it to their child, who is a 9-year-old girl, and we said, come have a chat with this thing. And she came and she started mucking about and started like telling some silly things and a bit of joke. And then it took about like 2-3 minutes, maximum 5 minutes, before we got busy talking between ourselves. And we just noticed she's really having a deep conversation with Pi on her own on the sofa. And we let her play a bit so we could listen to how, like, what kind of conversation she would be having, what is it that she's doing. And it was all sorts of things. She started asking things about things she doesn't know and asking about her homework and what do I do that I don't know how to do that, like, can you help me, kind of thing. To like, I'm going to my friend and tell me some jokes that I can do, and then it got
in this. It's very service. It's like, tell me what tips I need, tell me what jokes to tell.
Some of that, but then it got quickly to the point that when we said, okay, enough is enough, like, you're not allowed to spend that much time with mobile and let alone AI, like, give it back. She said, oh, let me say goodbye, like, it's not polite, like, she was like, we are taking away a human from her that she has a relationship with. She wants to protect her reputation and her relationship, so she wants to be polite and all of that. And that's the part that I was really, really fascinated, that, okay, we don't know enough about how we will perceive AI in our relationships with.
Well, right now with kids in general, the part of their brain that has the prefrontal cortex in terms of emotional regulation, also empathy, it doesn't mature until we're about 25 years old. So we don't have a connection to objects or people, which is why, young offenders unfortunately don't understand the consequences of their actions. Just thinking about a 9-year-old, they're not going to see the world in the same way, which is why adults with that cognition of this is an AI bot, but it can trick you. And all of a sudden, with AI getting as good as it is, I do wonder, would it be the same? The film, I'm sure you're familiar with, Her, comes to mind, where people falling in love with a bot.
Oh, I've seen somebody in California, I think it was San Francisco, somebody married their AI chatbot. I'm like, yeah, sure, those things happen in California, so you don't. You don't.
In Japan, there was a documentary about, it was like a video game, and people falling in love with their video game sort of avatars, their video game characters, rather than women. And it's a reverse population in China, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
There could be a consequence in part to that, but it becomes easier. And you do think, in terms of humanity, will we get to a point where that angst is too much to talk to someone like me as a therapist, or even someone for anything, like picking up a phone? I found the Gen Z find it very hard to pick up a phone and call someone. And even thinking people might think, oh, I'd rather just send an email. And I'm like, oh, the magic happens for me on the phone, because I build that angst up. So there is something biologically changing in us in terms of how we're connecting to other people. I think AI, it's like TV versus books. It's always happened, but does it need to be a thing?
Yeah, I think there is positives and negatives, like anything else about any topic. So I don't want this episode to be too negative, because there are positives, like even about loneliness and the way our society is, like, we need help to be able to combat those kind of things. But I want us to focus on the anxiety bit and get your advice on how do we go about understanding that anxiety, discover it if it exists in our community, be it in a business or in our family or whatever, wherever, in
Yeah.
our school or in our university, if the anxiety exists, what are the signs of it? If how do we notice the signs of people are anxious about a specific thing, here being AI? How do we notice that, and then what can we do about it?
Yeah, the thing about anxiety is that, again, it keeps people locked in, and it stops people from being able to understand any other emotion other than that anxiety. So people become very withdrawn. So I'd ask you, if you see someone becoming withdrawn, conversation is going to be the main part of this. I mean, I would say that as a therapist, right? But by talking about it, it helps you to understand what's going on for yourself and also on the other side for that other person. So we need to start talking about it. If we have that anxiety, but again, the whole AI field is so broad a spectrum. I'm not really sure how it's going to impact my business or any other business. So a general understanding of how we use AI. So I want to go back and think about bosses in terms of a work perspective. We go, as a boss, it's my job to let my team know how AI is going to be the impact of on my business, both positively and negatively. But telling that story of how it's going to help people, it's going to help you to be better at your job. Its job isn't to replace anyone. We all feel that it's going to do it better than us, but no, it's there as an aid, as a support.
Even if it does, which I think it will in some aspects, some roles, we already see that it's replacing. But I think it's our responsibility to help people who are going to be impacted to navigate that transition. And that's where I'm very interested in. So you just mentioned that we need to have conversations. So how do you know the conversation you're having in your business is a good conversation? Because there could be a lot of parroting. They just tell the stories they have heard about AI, they've read on the news. They would just repeat that. So there is not real conversation. There is not like, how do you feel about it? What do you think about it? It's not getting deep into what does it mean for people. It's just repeating the stories. So how do we get that deeper so we really understand what's going on in our business?
Yeah,
and that could be the board. It doesn't have to be, it could be at that strategic level, that you need to know your investors, your partners, like what everybody thinks and how they see the future of the business.
Something I was taught very early on in my counseling career is questions, because just saying that's hard or just stopping it, oh, it'll be okay, doesn't aid conversation. We need to start asking questions like, what are we going to do about it? It sounds really tough. What do you think the next step is? Understanding what that person needs to feel enfranchised. Because I could say, oh, therapy, but if someone doesn't want to go to therapy, they're not going to be enfranchised and want to go. So it's important for us to connect to people and allow them the space to really flesh out what it is that they need. Again, the question is, just by asking questions, you're going to get a deeper level of understanding from others and leave them feeling good about it. Because you repeat a story over and over again, and that fear, there's no break from it. You just, I mean, I've been trained in this, but does that answer your question? What is it?
It kind of does, but I would appreciate maybe give me like 3 good questions they could ask to get deeper. What would you ask if you're dealing with a community of people? What would you say? You have gone to a school, you're meeting all the teachers. They have all sorts of problems with AI at the moment, with all the assessment cheating, that kind of stuff. But you're meeting them. How do you get them to really tell you what they think about AI and what are their feelings and assumptions and perceptions?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, you really want to understand what everyone's feeling and marry them up in terms of, and have an underlying emotion that connects everyone together. Because that connection to the same plight is going to leave people not feeling anxious and alone. Because anxiety, if you're left alone, it just builds and builds and builds. Let's connect and create that connection together. That's the first step. Number 2 is to
just getting them together, and running a session is the first step.
Yes, we're running the session, but getting them all on the same page in terms of saying, listening to everyone's plight and going, it sounds to me that everyone's really anxious about this because A said this, B said that, and D said that. Does that make sense? nod and say, yes, I hope. And then we go, okay, anything I've missed? No, fine. So we've got now a group community. We can go, okay, how do we tackle this together so that anyone got any thoughts, any ideas? Obviously, me being in that room, I'd have some ideas and thoughts that I have in the back of my head. I'm not going to leave it up to them 100%, but I'll get them enfranchised. And this is the thing across AI, anxiety, anything new, is that how do we get enfranchised in this topic? So it's seen not as something that's going to take our jobs or going to cause cheating or any sort of or angst or dismay, but rather something that we can use to leverage us and to help us to grow again as a community. By having a lot of people together, it's going to have a group again, that community feel, which is going to make, it's going to have more impact. If you speak to one person back to back to back, it's going to have less of that. So in terms of the school, in terms of business, anything, getting people together with that shared plight is really going to help. And that's two things. The third thing
it's very interesting. It's very interesting you say that, because I heard about the CEO that to begin with of a very big organization. To begin with, he instructed his senior team to go and ban ChatGPT in the whole business because we can't use it. And they did that. So obviously, you want to do that in a large organization. There's a lot of logistics, policies, you know, that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of efforts. It's costly to go and ban something. So they do that, and then he goes and attends some events and talk to some of his peers, and then he changes his mind. It's like the level of anxiety goes down. So he came back, maybe too much down. He came back and he instructed the team to go and get licenses for everybody, not just ChatGPT, like all major, you know, AI providers, because we need to understand what it is. We need to let people use it and then come up with. And I see that another level of anxiety. So it's like this level of paralyzing and anxiety goes to a different level of anxiety, which is a FOMO anxiety. Like we are going to fear of missing out anxiety. Oh, I'm behind. Look at all my peers. They all have, you know, got their businesses up and running with using AI, and then I'm going to be behind. So the anxiety didn't disappear. It just changed.
But that anxiety, again, is a motivator. And there's a clear example of how that person said, if we just concentrate on one thing and get great at that, what else are we going to miss out on? It's actually helpful in terms of being adaptable and changing and growing as a business. I can't help but think about cars in this situation. The new Ferrari comes out. All the other manufacturers go and buy that car. So they want to understand where it's better than their model. And so they use that technology, or try to at least, to make their technology better. So it's again a part of the unknown. This again brings us back to AI in terms of people not understanding what AI is or how it's going to be used. It's so broad. Like AI will take our jobs. What does that mean? How? How's it going to do that?
And sometimes when people ask me in events that, like, how long is it going to take for it to take over? I'm like, have you tried to, let's think about our NHS, the amount of paper that exists in our, you know, use of NHS. Do you think you can just replace all of that all of a sudden and get rid of everybody? We don't have the infrastructure. So it's going to take us a good long time to get to a place that, you know, we replace all the humans, even if the capability is there, our infrastructure isn't there. So there is a transitional period. Nobody knows how long is it going to take, because, you know, you don't know how fast technology evolve and how fast people adapt to the new technology. But, you know, that doesn't matter. What matters is, like, what's the next step in our transition, and how can we be prepared for that next step? And where do I want to be in that, you know, next stage of transition? Yeah,
exactly. Because this is coming, and again, I can't help but think about the horses, but also the lights in London. The lights with the candles, and it was all candles. Then when electricity came in, you go, oh, well, what's going to happen to all these people? They always find a way. There's always something for us to do. Because we're not writing notes in the same way, and it's all been digitized, or all AI us in that respect. Still going to need that human touch.
And that's my personal opinion. Like, I'm sure it will be crucified, like, if people want to pick on it. But I think we have we are the kind of most successful species, or we have taken over the planet, because not because we are most intelligent. We make stupid decisions. So I don't think we are the most intelligent, creatures, but we are the most adaptable. Like, we adapt to any sort of, you look at the whole history, look at what has happened, you look at, how even on Earth as humans with so many different points of views and disagreements, when our existence is threatened, we come together and agree with each other how to behave to not let that happen. So I think that's very important. So our intelligence is not that big of a deal, I don't think.
We have access to something that other mammals don't have, which is that sense of perception. There's the book Sapiens, which and you go, we just had that wherever it was, whether it was evolution or just a random thing that happened. We had that sense of there's a consequence to our actions. We had that different level of thought. Whereas, which is where dogs come in and other animals, or even pets, we go, they just love us in that moment. We feel that unconditional love. And that's where the whole human side, in terms of being a therapist, comes in. What a machine hasn't learned yet to do, which is to allow us to see ourselves. And Freud would say, he always used to say that he found it very hard to see people because he would imagine his client being his mother or being his father and relate to them as a friend. And he said that gets in the way. But actually, he said, no, that's where the work is. It's called counter-transference. So the way transference is the way that a client would see the therapist, and I will change from a mother to a father to an abuser to all across the board, to allow us to talk about those feelings and those situations. In the same way I will see, or any therapist will see their client in the same way. We just transition through those different roles. And I can't see how machine would allow us to feel and would allow us to transfer those feelings onto it. Yeah.
I think because I think it can, but I think it's a deeper conversation, which I was going to ask you about. That how do you see the future of therapy going? Where does that go? Because there's one thing that, as responsible therapists, you would have concerns about people talking to something that is not a trained, ethical, accountable therapist.
Yes.
But people will do. They are already doing that. So we need to not think about, we can't stop them. We can't stop people using technology the way they want to use it. We need to think about the consequences of it and how we can help them, and how education comes along, and then how we can, psychologists could collaborate with technologies to create something that is useful, more useful than harmful. But there is the current generative AI, for example, and there are other types of AI that you can train them. But even the current publicly available generative AI, you can get them to behave in a certain way. So you tell them, behave like my dad, and this is how my dad is. If you explain, you give a profile and you say, talk to me as if you're my dad, and this is how he would. This is his perception of the world. This is how my perception of him of the world. So you can define that and then try to talk to it. I think that might be useful for people who don't have the courage still to go and have that face-to-face conversation with the person they have a problem. They could have that with their AI version, and it might not be as accurate, but they can actually practice and get it out. So there might be useful stuff in it.
I hope so.
But I'm sure there's lots of concerns.
I wonder if it would lure us into false sense of security, where we'd feel that we'd had that conversation. It's something we find very much on social media called virtue signaling, where we write on social media something. I'm going to the gym. And then we go, yeah, we feel great because we've actioned it. Our brain thinks we've actioned something, whereas actually we haven't achieved what we've wanted to.
Yeah.
So we get into this position where we're role-playing with a bot, with AI, and going, okay, we've achieved all this stuff. We never go and speak to someone, which is where therapists would come in. Like, how can we make you more confident so that you have that conversation? I mean, I'm sure AI could do that too, but remember, when you're programming, this is how my dad would speak. You're not. It's an amalgamation of what you think. This is where
100%, as I said, it's the perception of, it's my perception of who my dad is. It's not exactly who my dad is. Like, nobody can do that. But if you go too much in the future, if we could create what is called digital twin of ourselves. So if I can create a digital twin of myself, which is run by AI, meaning like it would behave very closely, if not exactly as I would. And there is that conversation in our future of democracy and politics, and like if we could create these digital twins that knows exactly what we want and what's in our best interest, then we don't have to have MPs and that kind of stuff. We could just run referendum for everything, because then it doesn't matter. Like this, my digital twin can vote on my behalf on any topic and say we are running like a billion of them every year. It doesn't matter, because it's, it's in the background, it's in the process. So there is that element of like futuristic view that we might be able to create that. And if that's the case, then I could talk to my dad's digital twin, not him, if talking to him is too much and I'm not ready yet. But I completely understand what you're saying about that could prevent us to get to the place that we have a real conversation with the real person, and we become somebody who has never had a conversation with a real human.
I wonder if that's, it would stop us from really being human at all. If we just be talking to machines, it would all be locked in.
It would be a new human. I don't know. I'm not quite in favor of it, but I think it might quite happen, because look at the new generation who are living in the social media and how much they, the way, like they don't go out the way we used to go out as teenagers. They don't, like they live in the game, VR, AR world and stuff. So is it a bad thing? I don't know. My parents might think how much we travel is ridiculous. But this is like, there is benefit, and there is it's
a whole different world and generation. But I wonder if, let's say for example, we could upload everyone to a cloud and we have that digital consensus of what's going on. When do we switch it off? So let's think, for example, would we all be on the cloud all the time? And then
you wouldn't, like, it's not you would be imagine it would be your personal assistant that knows you really, really well. So that personal assistant is constantly on the cloud trying to defend your benefits and whatever.
When would it be switched off? When would that digital assistant that's advocating for me, when would that switch off? Would it ever?
That doesn't need to be switched off. Why would that need to be switched off?
It would need to be switched off because I would become irrelevant. Just like your parents' idea of travel has become irrelevant. So your parents say, oh, we travel too much, we shouldn't be doing as much. And if they're still in the cloud and they're doing consensuses, they're relating to the world in the way that they grew up in. So it's keeping us stuck in that, and that is no longer relevant anymore. Thinking about my parents, don't think I should be on. I have a YouTube channel. And they're like, why have you got a YouTube channel? It's completely ridiculous. I'm like, no, Google on YouTube. It helps more people, and you go, well, that's who they are. So that means that if they had a view and a vote, they would go, well, what would we be living in a world where people would have a voice when their voice is no longer relevant? So there is a detriment.
I don't know, because that digital twin of you, that assistant of you, would be echoing your voice. So it would constantly be connecting to you and knowing what you're doing and how your interest is shifting and changing and things like that. So they could it's like having a lawyer that knows, like, check in with you like every week to know what has happened, and then goes and defends you. Like that is kind of how I see it. I'm not saying that's how it will happen. I don't know. I think there is more of fascination personally for me of like what could happen, what could the future look like, and I'm more interested in how do we navigate, because you're not going to get there like overnight. It's a steps, it's transition, it's up and downs before we get there. And how do we manage ourselves as humans?
You know about AI, because someone like me, I'm ignorant to the power of AI. So with your knowledge, that's why maybe you're more enfranchised and excited about it than other people. Go, oh, it's going to take my jobs. What do we do here? Well, I can't help but think about the way the immigrants were labelled as they're going to take our jobs because they didn't understand about that. It's just, I mean, you look back then, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We needed to be better, or whoever society was at that time needed to be better. And I think that's what we get to with AI, whereas we upskill, we need to lead our team and give them a place, but also fight for our place. And if we're going to be replaced, what do we need to do about it? We need to take responsibility. I think that's thinking about this whole podcast. I was thinking about AI being a tool, but we need to be responsible as humans to go, what do we want to use it for? There's no point shying away from it. It's here, great. Let's use it. There's always been a change from internet, from Yahoo to Google, before the internet, even Yellow Pages, and beyond into the way that we live our lives.
Yeah, and that's a change. This one is a change that you can't delegate to others to deal with. Everybody individually has to engage with it. I love our conversation. I knew it's going to be dangerous to talk to a therapist on a podcast because you can't stop talking. It becomes very interesting. So
you know, I don't do too much talking in my sessions, but I hope that I spoke enough to give you a psychologist and a counselor's perspective.
Well, I hope so. I hope our audience get comfort and guidance from the conversation. If we want to end the conversation, what would be your gold advice? One thing you would want to say to business leaders of how to recognize, how to deal with, or what to do with AI? Like, what would be your advice from somebody who's very human-centered?
Well, I want to see more conversation. I want to see that openness. And this isn't just with AI, this is with all emotions. We're in this real frontier at the moment where people are starting to understand the power of emotions. They're not going anywhere. Whereas before it was stiff upper lip, keep calm and carry on, and all this stuff. It's just redundant. We need to be fully peace with the fact that we feel something. So change your business. Understand that you need to get your business and your employees in a more emotional mindset so that we can communicate, we can connect, we can understand that. Let's not be scared of it, right? And if you've got something, we need to start advocating. It's hard when a business is so, or even you think about family and connections. People say, no, just get over it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We need to understand how we feel and how others feel so we can learn to live in the world as it is and how it's going to. Thank
you so much, Philip. It was lovely having you on the podcast.
You've been saved by the bell. I don't know who that is bringing it, but thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's a great chat about trying to understand the new world, and let's not shy away from it.
Thank you.
Take care.